I encourage submissions every year and hope we get a nice set again this year, which I'm sure we will. Uh, it is a great tribute to Dr. Hay and all his impact on the rail community that will go on for decades. And, uh, I think it also encourages firms to approach their various projects with the three elements that are involved with the Hay Award in mind. So it's good all the way around. It's a good training exercise. It's a good memorialization of major projects, and it encourages folks down the road from looking back. What was successful? How did they handle this particular incident or situation? And it's an educational process as well.
You may know the American Railway Engineering and Maintenance of Way Association, or AREMA, as the, quote, keepers of the manuals. You may know them as the, quote, people behind the largest annual railroad conference in North America. Heck, you may not know about AREMA at all. This podcast is designed, no pun intended, to change your view of who AREMA is and how AREMA has changed the trajectory of many railway careers over its 100-plus year history. Welcome to Platform Chats with your host, Walt Bleser, where he takes a moment to discuss the impacts AREMA has had on the very people who are proud to be called members. Are you ready to roll with AREMA?
ARE Corporation is a proud supporter of AREMA and Platform Chats. If you are looking to take your railway structures career to the next level, or simply start it down the right track, please visit us at arecorp.com. Please see our brand new job postings on our careers page or on our LinkedIn page.
Hello and welcome back to AREMA's Platform Chats. I'm your host, Walt Bleser, in my final year as Director of Structures for the AREMA Functional Group. I don't know what they're going to do with me at the end of this year. I'm sure they'll find something for me to do in addition to these podcasts because AREMA sure loves their volunteers. Today on the podcast, we are leaving Women's History Month and we are entering April. And with that, we are entering the season of the Hay Award, and we are looking for people to nominate and or apply for the Hay Award. Now, you may know nothing about it. I know very little. I've never applied for a Hay Award. We are going to cover everything and anything having to do with the Hay Award. In order to do so, we have a heavy-hitting panel for you today. We have one of the founding fathers of the Hay Award, Mr. Michael Franke. We have a judge of the Hay Award, Mr. Chris Barkan. And we have a past winner of the Hay Award with his company, Mr. Matt Fletcher. So, the introduction is going to be short today. I got a lot to cover in the next half hour or so. I'm going to jump right into introductions, and I'm going to start with Mr. Michael Franke, who, like I said earlier, is one of the founding fathers. So, Michael, if you could just tell us a little bit about your storied career in the rail industry, your storied career with AREMA, and your relationship with the Hay Award, I think we'd love to hear about it.
Sure, I'd be glad to give an update. I've been interested in the rail industry ever since a little child. My dad tells me that I used to ask him to take me down to the train station when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, and that has never left. I attended Washington University in St. Louis for undergraduate school and took quite a few transportation-related courses, although they did not have a formal rail program. But I took such things. It was a civil engineering degree, but I also took a lot of business courses: interstate commerce law, business law, transportation economics, etc. After the junior year, I started working summers for Norfolk and Western Railway, and in my senior year, they kept me on part-time during the year. Of course, that later became Norfolk Southern. After graduation, I then enrolled in the Hay program at the University of Illinois Champaign Urbana, in the rail program, rail engineering program. And just prior to getting into the school, the draft came up, and I was given a notification that I was being drafted into the Army. I was actually on a bus to a camp, a fort, when word came that they had reached the mandatory number of candidates for the Army, and the bus turned around. I called Dr. Hay at that time and said, "Can I still come to the program?" He said, "Absolutely." So went into the program, and it was a wonderful experience. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Uh, a very practical individual, very much experienced in the industry. So it was both a theoretical study as well as uh, a strictly practical study. What was interesting was that I got assigned a project around the Midwest with a university car to take rail profile samples, which had been a long-term study on rail wear, both vertical and longitudinal rail wear. And we had test sites all over the Midwest, which I would travel to and take the rail measurements from time to time. After that, I went into the rail industry, back to the Norfolk and Western, Norfolk Southern. And during my career, I also worked for the Burlington Northern Santa Fe, where I was vice president chief engineer. I retired there and went to work for a couple other companies, including VP operations on the Chicago South Shore and South Bend. And then I joined Amtrak at the end of my career for a fairly long period of time, heading up the state-supported service group in Chicago. So that pretty well brings us up to date. I'm still active in quite a few boards and committees related to the rail industry. So it's still in my blood.
And you're being quite humble because I believe in the ARIMA world, you were a past president. Can you talk just a little bit about your ARIMA participation and how long you've been an active member?
Yes. Actually, I owe Dr. Hay, Professor Hay, my membership in ARIMA because he encouraged all of his rail students to become members. And that's why I attended my first annual convention during my tenure there at the university. And yes, I was president of the ARIMA predecessor organization, AREA, and I've been a member of Committee 16 for a great number of years, which is where this award originated.
And Committee 16 covers what exactly?
Operations and maintenance.
Operations and maintenance. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. And that is quite the storied career. Chris, now you got to follow that. Let's see what. Let's hear your background.
Well, first of all, one of these days, Mike, you and I have to exchange notes on draft lottery numbers.
Yes.
But anyway, much like yourself, my father got me interested in railroads when I was very young. Same thing. We used to go down to the New Haven Railroad Station and watch the New Haven Railroad locomotive change from electric to diesel. And so I've been interested in railroad transportation as long as I can remember. But my education took me in a little bit of a different direction, which ended up bringing me back to rail, which is that I went to college to study biology and ecology and environmental science, completed my bachelor's at Goddard College and my master's and PhD at the State University of New York at Albany, again in ecology. And then somewhat serendipitously, I was visiting the Association of American Railroads headquarters in Washington, D.C., and was visiting their library. And on a whim, I thought, well, I should see if they have any jobs open here. And guess what? They were looking for an environmental scientist. And thanks to my father's influence and my own avocational interest in rail transport, I knew something about the subject and I knew something about environmental science. And so it was kind of a perfect melding of my two interests. So I applied for that job and got it. And it was not long after when I joined ARIMA. In fact, it was Tom Smithberger, who was then executive director of ARIMA, who signed me up, along with my boss, Peter Conlin. And immediately got involved in the ARIMA Committee 13, the Environmental Engineering Committee, and worked at AAR managing their environmental and hazardous materials research program for 10 years, and had just tremendous opportunities to learn about really all aspects of rail. If you think about the two subjects of my work, environmental and hazardous materials, and those have touch almost every aspect of rail transportation and engineering. So it really was a great kind of second education for me to learn about rail transportation and engineering to work there in that position. So that was in 1988 when I went to work there. And in 1998, my job at AAR was moving to Pueblo, Colorado. But meanwhile, my predecessor here at the University of Illinois, Ernie Berenberg, had retired. And so there was a kind of a three-way conversation between me, the Association of American Railroads, and the University of Illinois about me coming here instead of moving to Pueblo. And so I came here in 98 to take the faculty position to kind of renew and rejuvenate the railroad engineering program here. And I had already met Mike before that, but since then, as an alumnus, Mike was very interested in the success of our program and has been helpful ever since. And of course, about that time, I started meeting people from Hanson Professional Services, including Matt, because my role here was not only to conduct research, but also to teach classes and develop a curriculum, and we've been successful in doing that. And we've placed a lot of our graduates with the Class 1 railroads, with engineering firms, including Hanson Professional Services, and many others, also regulatory agencies and various other organizations that have rail programs and rail operations. And at some point, Mike Franke approached me about serving as a judge in the Hanson or in the Hay Award, and so I've been very honored to play that role ever since then. And of course, we hold Professor Hay in very high esteem here, as Mike has already alluded to. He really was one of the mentors of railroad engineering education throughout the latter half of the 20th century, and we still use his textbook and still use some of his class notes that we've adapted for current purposes.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you for being on the show. Matt. Mr. Hey. Matt Fletcher Fletcher from Hanson Professional Services. I have a feeling you are not going to talk about draft numbers.
That's correct. No, thankfully not. But I do have a lot in common with these gentlemen. My bachelor's was from University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I have a family history of railroad. My father was third generation working out of Champaign for CN and predecessor railroads. But at the time I went into school, I really had no interest in railroading at all. I was interested in structures and geotechnical work, and that's where I got my degree. I went on to start working after my bachelor's, but got a master's from Bradley University and worked for a consulting firm for about 5 or 6 years. Hanson had a position open, and I jumped over at that time and took that position and was looking forward to doing structures. Little did I know it was going to turn into bridges. We had some good connections with BNSF and jumped right in, started working on railroad bridges, and had some great mentors here, and I've really enjoyed working my way through all kinds of design challenges over the years, and leading our rail program now at this time. I joined ARIMA, I believe, in about 2003, and I joined Committee 15 Steel Structures. I think that was about 2010, and have served on that committee since that time, and really found it very rewarding and a great way to learn something every day, every meeting, and meet a lot of amazing people.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt, for the introduction. Thank you all three for the introductions, and thanks you again for being on the show. I'm going to just start with the most general and easiest question here is, I heard a lot about Professor Hay. I've heard about the School of University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign as being one of the few institutes teaching railroading, if you will. I know a lot of people talk about coming out of school with almost no knowledge of railroading and learning almost everything they do know today on the job, if you will. And at the same time, I've heard a lot of folks that have been through the UIUC program and have had a lot of success learning about railroading in undergrad. So let's just start there. Who was Dr. Hay? I'm going to give this one to Mike. Who was Dr. Hay, and why does he have such a footprint or fingerprint, I should say, on our industry?
Well, Dr. Hay has a long history of activity in the rail industry, as well as degrees in railway engineering. He became an academic leader in engineering for more than a quarter century when he was at University of Illinois. As World War II came around, he was called to service with the Military Railway Service. And when the war moved to the Asian continent, he became chief engineer of the Korean railways. A lot of people don't know that. After the war, he came back and studied further at Yale University in transportation and economics, and then he had some additional jobs with various railroads. Finally came to the University of Illinois in 1947 as an assistant professor in railway engineering. And then he rose, of course, through the ranks to become a full professor. He finally retired in 1977 with the rank of professor emeritus. During the tenure at the University of Illinois, he taught more than 700 students in railway engineering, and over 70 of those went into positions of major rank within the rail industry. They became leaders in engineering, operations, mechanical, and so forth. He was also a very active member of many professional organizations, including ARIMA, and he was with the Roadmasters Association and some other organizations as well. So he was extremely well known throughout the industry, not only with his students, but also with professionals throughout the industry. He was also part of the Illinois High-Speed Rail Commission at one point in time. We're here decades later, we're still trying to get some high-speed rail in Illinois, but it is slowly increasing in speeds. We're up to 110 miles per hour on one of the corridors. So that's basically his history. Chris, I know that you've drafted up a history as well. Is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered it well. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, he was really an icon in the field, especially during an important time when virtually every other university in the United States was in the process of phasing out or eliminating their rail programs. He was almost the last man standing in that regard, with just a few other exceptions. Arnold Kerr, of course, and I'm forgetting other name, but anyway, he really helped keep the candle alive of railroad engineering at universities, frankly, with the help of the Association of American Railroads, because it was in 1982 that they formed their affiliated lab program, which was, again, for the specific purpose. It was the brainchild of Dr. William Harris, who was vice president of research at the time at the AR, and he and Dr. Hay and his successor, Ernie Berenberg, formed the affiliated lab program to keep railroad engineering education alive at the University of Illinois, as well as two other universities at the time.
And so when did he pass?
He passed, let's see, I have a note on that here. He passed in 1998. I'm sorry.
I believe that's correct, Mike.
1998, May 26th.
Yeah, because it was the same year that I came here, and I regretted that I missed seeing him. We didn't quite overlap. He had passed. I started in August.
Yes, he was in a home toward the end of his life, and I used to visit him once or twice a year, and he would always, he could hardly see at the end. He was almost blind. But when I walked into his room, he would say, "Did you see the article in Railway Age magazine last month about so and so?" And I began to wonder how he could see that because his vision was so bad. And he told me that one of the nurses read him the entire magazine, cover to cover, to keep him up to date, and his mind was still very sharp.
I hope one of the railroads hired her.
Yeah. So, Chris, it sounds like you are the torch has been passed, and I'd love to hear just a brief update of the status of his program being alive and well. It sounds like at Rail Tech, I believe.
Yep. Yeah. Well, we're very fortunate that I arrived here again in 1998, and we were the only university at that time that was considering expanding our rail program. And I credit a number of people with the vision. Certainly, my department head at the time here, the people at AAR, Roy Allen and Scott Harvey, and some of the others there. But here, Dave Daniel, who was the head, and Fred Lawrence, associate head, and Bill Showalter, who was the dean. They were among the very few academics in the late 90s that saw that there was a future for railroad engineering and that the University of Illinois should play a role in that. And so, again, as I said, I came here with the responsibility to grow the program, and that started with increasing the number of courses we were offering, which I set about to do. And expanding our research program. As I mentioned, we were already an AAR affiliated laboratory, which was a really great source of support to keep our program, our railroad engineering program, going during the 80s and 90s. And then slowly from there, we built upon that with support from Class 1 railroads, the Transportation Research Board IDEA program, then later the railway supply industry, the Federal Railroad Administration, and we now have, over the course of my now 20 plus years here, we've had research support from many dozens of organizations representing, again, both private and public sector organizations. So we've got a robust research program here in railway systems, railway infrastructure, and railway safety and risk. And the point of these research programs, besides advancing the state of the art and answering important questions to the railroad industry, is that these serve as a really important vehicle for educating our students, much like the story that Mike related earlier about measuring rail profiles in the state. This was obviously helped us understand problems of rail wear, but it also helped with Mike's education. And that's exactly what our role here is to educate students through our teaching and through our research. And we've placed now hundreds of students in a variety of positions throughout the rail sector. We continue to enjoy support from many different organizations. And I should also mention, besides the research support, we've been very fortunate to have several major gifts and endowments, again, with the objective of supporting our program and our educational activities. And that includes gifts from the BNSF Railway, Canadian National, Union Pacific, Hanson Professional Services, and several others. And again, ongoing support from the AAR for our research and educational programs as well, for which we're really grateful. And, the real beneficiaries of this, of course, are not only our students who are getting their education supported, but also the rail industry at large, which is benefiting, again, not only from the research results, but all these young minds entering the profession as a result of their education and exposure to the field here.
Excellent. Thank you. That's quite the program you have. And if people are on this podcast listening and in a student position, this might be something to look into if you would like to pursue a degree and or undergrad or graduate work in the rail industry. Let's get to the Hay Award. That's the point of this podcast. Let's talk a little bit about it. I think everyone now has a good understanding of who Dr. Hay was, his importance in the industry. Let's talk, Mike. Let's just talk, and I'm sorry, Matt, I guarantee you I will get to you. But Mike, let's talk briefly about the genesis of the Hay Award. Where did it come from? How long has it been around? And what, frankly, is the importance of it to ARIMA?
Well, the Hay Award was something that we thought we should establish after Dr. Hay passed away in 1998. So in 1999, a number of us on Committee 16 said that we should have some kind of a recognition to not only recognize outstanding achievement in railway engineering, but also to honor the memory and accomplishments of Dr. Hay, who was obviously a leader of many of the folks that were out in the industry. So in 1999, we established the award, or the recognition, and we've had a solid number of entries every year since. It was a little bit down last year because of the COVID, I think because of the COVID situation, but we have had outstanding projects that have been submitted. The applications are open to state agencies, to railway organizations, to consultants, really to any group that is involved with promoting and creating a noteworthy project involving railway engineering. And we've really had some wonderful projects over the years.
And so I guess the importance of it, I am going to talk a little bit about this here, Matt. When Hanson saw the opportunity to work on a project and apply to win this, what would you say is the quote unquote importance of winning or receiving a Hay Award for Hanson, for you, your staff? If you could kind of give me an elevator speech on that.
Well, I think it's just, it's great feedback for a large team of people that came together to deliver a project. And when you're recognized by your peers and throughout the industry, it's just really icing on the cake. And I think it's opened some doors for us, gives us an opportunity to participate in a podcast like this. And it's something that, we don't often, engineers by nature don't often toot our horns very much, but recognition like this is something you take that opportunity to do and make sure you pat yourself on the back a little bit.
I'd like everyone to understand very clearly, I did not compensate Matt in any way, shape, or form to state that a major piece of winning the Hay Award is the opportunity to be on this podcast. But I very much appreciate that kind of feedback, Matt.
Well,
yes.
Well,
please.
let me add something to that, which I should have mentioned earlier. There are 3 criteria that are basically used to judge the winner of the Hay Award. One is innovation. What kind of innovative applications or concepts were used? Another one is safety. How does the project improve safety, enhance safety, or contribute to overall safety? And then the third is service performance and reliability. What does it do for the operation, if you will, of the railway? So I just wanted to add that in. I should have mentioned that earlier.
Oh, no, that's outstanding. Thank you for that. And that's actually the fantastic segue, because I know Chris has a course he's teaching here shortly, and I want to make sure I get an opportunity to hear from him as a judge. What would you say, Chris, is going to differentiate one application from another? Is what gets you excited as a judge to see honoring Dr. Hay's name in this annual recognition?
Well, I have to say, and I suspect my sentiments on this are shared by other judges as well, sometimes it's very difficult. We get some tremendous applications. And of course, as Mike laid out, there are a set of criteria that we're supposed to use. And I always sit down and actually sometimes take several hours or even several days or several hours over several days, kind of reading all of the materials and then going back and scoring them and then reading them again. But I try to be objective. I try to use the criteria that Mike outlined in terms of the various elements by which we're supposed to judge them. I would also say, though, that, and this is probably an important message to the potential entries, is that it needs to be very clear how you're addressing each of the criteria. Sometimes it's not clear. And frankly, there have been very nice pieces of work done that didn't score as highly because they didn't do as good a job at articulating exactly how they conformed or how they fulfilled the various criteria. And so that's something that is probably worth entries understanding, or potential entries understanding, is to spell out the safety and spell out all the different things that they achieved.
Okay, and Matt, I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here. Let's talk a little bit about the project that won. If you could give us just an overview of what the project was and what made you, and I'm sure this happened, wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning, pop out of bed, and go, "I have got to apply for the Hay Award. This is the project. This is the one that's going to win."
Well, our project was for Norfolk Southern. It happened to be an emergency replacement project. The name of it was the Grand River Bridge. It's near Brunswick, Missouri. And in early October 2019, they had to cut the rails on that bridge. There was a flooding condition in the Grand River, and debris was built up very, very high onto the bridge and starting to push it over. And there was concern of losing the entire length of the bridge. So the Norfolk Southern team chose to cut the rails, and within a few minutes, about 270 feet of the bridge just got pushed over and washed into the river. Hanson got a call within a day to ask if we could help NS work on the replacement structure, and jumped to it. And at that time, early on, of course, the first question when you run a railroad and you lose a track for any period of time is, when are we going to get it back? And all pressure is on the Norfolk Southern and team and their consultants and contractors to do that very thing. So originally, I think they were estimating, from early October, they were hoping by Thanksgiving, 56 days, somewhere in there. Ultimately, the team was able to get the track back open in 27. A lot of work, 24 hours a day by many, many people, safe work. We did not even have a first aid incident on the project, and credit to Massman Construction, who was the general contractor on the work, for their team and the safety record that they came through. But there were opportunities to innovate a little bit. The emergency basis kind of makes you think outside the box. And what can we have to deliver things quickly. We can't rely on 28 days to cure concrete and get strength. We don't have the best access. A lot of the work was done with a barge, so you got to think outside the box on how you build it, how you get material there, and you don't have time, frankly, to fabricate beams. So Norfolk Southern searched around their system and was able to find spans that they thought would plug that hole in their bridge, and got them to the site. So that's just a few of the things, but many more I'm sure we can get into.
Sure. Mike, I'd love to hear from you. I know you probably were one of the judges or helped select this project. I guess, obviously, an emergency repair is fantastic. Are there other good examples of projects in the past that you've seen win, such that it might get a listener going, maybe mine is something that I could apply for? What, not just, so in other words, not just a bridge washout.
Sure, we've had a large variety of different topics that have won. I'm looking at my list here in front of me. Back in 1999, the first award was given to the BNSF Railway for the Thayer Blitz, which was a very, very concentrated effort to completely renew a railroad, not just a tie replacement or rail replacement, but everything was renewed because of the introduction of a large number of new coal trains on that territory, and it wasn't suitable in the condition it was in. That's one example. We've had a number of wonderful station projects over the years. Port Authority of New York, New Jersey, the JFK International Airport train. We've had clearance improvement projects. which don't sound all that exciting on the surface, but when you get into it, it really is a challenge to increase tunnel heights and so forth. We've had another commuter project. We've had improvements for passenger service in various parts of the country, in Washington State and Northeast Corridor. We've had a project down in Fort Worth, Texas, called the Tower 55 Multimodal Improvement Project, which involves a very, very congested, high traffic area, and improvements were made there. So I can certainly mention more, but I think it gives you a taste of or a flavor of the great variety of topics that have won in the past.
Yeah, it really does. Go ahead, Matt, please.
I was just going to add, it's not just projects in the U.S., right? If I'm not mistaken, a few years ago we had a project from New Zealand.
Yes, we did.
Was awarded that. So it's literally worldwide. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, we had a project from New Zealand on, I'm glad you mentioned that, by the way, Walt, on the earthquake recovery. That New Zealand had massive destruction of the rail network, and what they did to restore service.
Yes, I actually got to see that. That was a really interesting presentation. Yes, Chris.
Yeah, so I'm glad to hear Mike reciting this list of these previous award winners, and I want to comment on what they've led to in terms of our educational work here at the University of Illinois. So, for example, one of the notable ones that I remember from the mid-2000s was Norfolk Southern's response to Katrina. And I remember hearing that presentation at ARIMA, and I said, my students have got to hear this. And so we invited representatives from Norfolk Southern's engineering department to come and give a Hay seminar. One of the things we have at the University of Illinois is the Hay Railroad Engineering Seminar, and just presentations from all sorts of engineers, professionals, academics, government personnel, talking about various railroad projects. And so that was an example of how we brought the Hay Award home, you might say, to benefit our students. The earlier one that Mike referenced about the Thayer sub, that's actually become part of our engineering education curriculum to help explain to students how the blitz or these big major projects are undertaken by railroads, and really at a marked distinction from the way the highway projects tend to work, which tends to drag out for months or years. Railroads get things done, and that's one of the things I think that excites the juices, so to speak, of our young railroad engineering students. And so these Hay Awards often embody that kind of thing, and so in that sense are really, I think, inspirational to getting young people involved in pursuing careers along these lines. It's a demonstration of the incredible initiative, inventiveness, and sort of get the job done spirit that's so typical, I think, of the railroad engineering community. And again, I think it really does help us attract students to the field.
Excellent. Mike, I guess my last question here, I wouldn't even call it last question, but if there's a listener on here who's considering applying or has worked on a project and thinks that he's got what it takes to get the Hay Award, what would you say to that person right now?
Submit by May 20th.
That's what I thought you'd say. Submit by May 20th, folks. So if you're listening this after May 20th, I apologize, but you have missed the deadline for this year. But
I'd like to mention one more thing. There's really still a tie to the Hay family. Once in a while, not every year, but it has happened during several of our conventions, Mary and or Bill Hay, who are his children, will show up and come up on the podium with us and be part of the presentation process. So it's still part of the family.
Yes, I actually have witnessed that in some of the ARIMA conventions. Do you know if they'll make the Denver convention this year?
Well, Bill Hay is a retired physician. That's the son. He actually lives in Denver and probably will make it. And Mary Hay has written me she may try to make it. She is now back just south of Champaign.
Excellent. Okay. How about you, Matt? You're right there in the thick of things. If you're talking to your colleagues, what would make you try to get somebody excited about, I mean, honestly, there's a lot of work, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of work in putting together an application. I was involved in one application that we put together many moons ago, and I remember it was a 3-ring binder thick of details and plans and drawings and pictures and stories. And, there's an expense, to a professional services firm to put something like that together. So what would you say to somebody about why to go through all that pain to potentially apply?
Well, I really think it's worth it. And honestly, the Grand River Bridge, our winner in 2020, is a great example. It's not a large project. I think the construction was under $10 million. It's not like a New Zealand earthquake repair, right? But it's a winner. I think compared to your 3-ring binder, we had about 9 pages of text and photos that we submitted. We hit on all those key elements, those 3 main categories, and all of that prep time is really useful for you in the future, right? We're all in business. We're trying to win projects, and and we're going to use this information in other places. There's other opportunities to submit for awards, and we've sure done that with this project. There's opportunities to go present, to give back to ARIMA and students, and maybe go to universities and present there. So while it might feel like a lot of work, it's all going to pay off, and it's a good use of your time, and you just might win.
And it sounds like, if I've heard anything throughout this podcast, is as I do wrap it up, I'd like Mike to kind of have the final word here. But just to be associated with this name, it's a storied name in the industry, and to have worked on something that does have the recognition from the esteemed judges that have been appointed, and to make the list, right? To make that annual list that Mike rattled off earlier was impressive. So, Mike, I would like you to close this one out. If there's anything else you'd like to say about Hay, the award, anything in general, frankly.
I encourage submissions every year and hope we get a nice set again this year, which I'm sure we will. It is a great tribute to Dr. Hay and all his impact on the rail community that will go on for decades. And, I think it also encourages firms to approach their various projects with the 3 elements that are involved with the Hay Award in mind. So it's good all the way around. It's a good training exercise. It's a good memorialization of major projects, and it encourages folks down the road from looking back. What was successful? How did they handle this particular incident or situation? And it's an educational process as well. So,
I agree with you, and it's a great memorialization of some really major projects. And as we continue to see retirements in this industry, and we see turnover of knowledge, I know I like to see any opportunity, frankly, to have things written down and documented so that the next generation can see what was done or how a problem was faced, not just in a textbook, but also in a real life situation. I would like to thank all 3 of you for joining me today. I think this was a great podcast. I really enjoyed hearing about Dr. Hay and hearing about the award. I will be honest, I did not know nearly as much as I did, and that means I guarantee my listeners learned a lot today as well. So thanks to the 3 of you, and I really hope to see all 3 of you in Denver this fall.
Hope to see you as well.
We'll be there with all our students.
Thanks a lot.
You going to have long hair or short hair?
Well, is it going to be short hair?
Okay.
All right, you heard it here first. Dr. Chris Barkan will have short hair in the fall. Thank you very much, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for rolling with ARIMA on today's episode of Platform Chats. For further information about ARIMA, please visit arema.org or contact us at info@arima.org.